Guys, welcome to the Schiller Hamilton Podcast. I'm just, as you know, we were just discussing how excited I am that y'all are both here. Joined today by Peter Moroni, the chairman of the Winthrop Foundation, and Dr. Jack DeRochi, the interim vice president of advancement. And I'm the only one here without a Winthrop lapel pin, unfortunately.
Something's wrong there. I don't know.
Something's wrong. I failed miserably. I did wear my Winthrop tie for the occasion, which actually includes the blue line.
I actually blame advancement for that.
Do you?
You should have a pin.
Serious question. Are you team include blue in Winthrop official colors or team just the garnet and gold?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Because for a while it was in there.
It was.
Mm-hmm.
And for a while we had the blue banners going down Scholars Walk. That created a bit of a controversy.
It's funny that was controversial.
Yes.
Because they looked great.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Very regal.
Mm-hmm.
Very important. Very significant.
That's right.
Do you remember, though, in 05, 04, athletics had this gray theme that they had with all of their practice and all of their team sports? You had gray, black, and white.
No, I don't remember that.
I have some copies. I have some stuff at home.
Are there like shots of Peter in the gray, black, and white Winthrop uniform?
Yes, it's okay though.
That's awesome. Well, I want to talk a little bit. Winthrop is going through some really exciting changes right now. We have new leadership coming in. I say we. Y'all have new leadership coming in. I'm a member of the greater Winthrop community, being an alumni, but let's talk a little bit about the presidential search process. How can, as a member of the Winthrop community, Winthrop has been through a lot. How can I be sure that Winthrop got it right in the search process? And how was the search process designed to pick the right person for the job?
Well, I guess I will tee that one off, being part of the PSAG group. The first thing I'd say is it took 8 months to actually arrive at a decision. So that is how, I don't want to say labor-intensive this was overall. They got it right because they made a decision quickly at the end.
Yeah.
Which when you do a lot of high effort throughout anything, it's very easy to come to a decision. I think the Board of Trustees as well listened to the community, listened to the constituents of the staff, the faculty, students, the business community as well. I know you were a little bit involved in that, Joel, to an extent. Felt very confident overall in everything that the search embodied. Dr. Julie Fowler did an amazing job. Chairman McCall, Vice Chairman Kathy Bingham as well. It ran extremely smoothly, and no stone was left unturned with this search.
So how wide of a net does a university like Winthrop cast in trying to find this person? How do they go out into the market and recruit the right type of person?
I think it all starts with a search firm that they hire, and Jack might have more clarity on that because he's been in higher ed much longer than I have, at least directly.
Myers McRae is a great search firm, very well known in the Southeast, and they've also worked with schools of our kind for a long time, so they were well suited to conduct this kind of search. And I will say this, we had a huge number of applicants, and this was not a surprise. Winthrop's been through a lot the last few years. Folks might have been surprised to see that much interest. But I certainly wasn't, and nor with others, just because of the opportunities that Winthrop has before it. Myers did a great job. I really appreciate Peter also emphasizing the point, and for both people that will listen to this podcast, this will be important. That it was really inclusive and that they listened to feedback. I don't think there's any question that that's clear. Mm-hmm. Then I would just also add they made the right choice in the sense of what the process spit out, right? Mm-hmm. And trust the process. The process will take care of itself. And it moved quickly, and that we needed it to move quickly. There was a lot of pent-up demand because of COVID. There were not a lot of searches run last year. And so I think the board should be commended with the expediency with which they executed from the time that applications were in to the time of the selection. In terms of the effectiveness for Dr. Cerna, that's going to rely on a lot of us at the university, Dr. Cerna as well. Now the work starts.
Right.
the solution didn't happen. The work starts towards a brighter future starts now.
Jack, you've been at the university long enough to have been through a few of these before, maybe more than we'd like to admit to. What was different about this process from the process that you observed before, when we had, went through the same thing? What lessons were learned, and how did you see those lessons applied this time?
That's interesting. Well, one major difference was I do think the communications were cogent and consistent about where we were in the process and what was happening. I think Dr. Fowler did a nice job making sure those communications continued. I think the conception of the process was very different in the sense of we're going to have a community group, we're going to have an advisory group, we're going to engage as many people through the process, but we're not going to slow down that process by including so many. We're going to do it efficiently and effectively and keep it moving. And I think that was big. I think that the entire board served as the search committee was different. Mm-hmm. And I think in some ways that helped them arrive at a consensus quicker. I think it gave them all access to all the information all the way through. And I think that improved the process.
Yeah, so the question is, when you're starting this process, I imagine you have to be really just pragmatic and take an honest assessment of the university and the challenges that it's going to face over the next several years or even currently. How does that process, or how do those challenges influence the process and the type of person that you actually need to go find to confront those challenges?
To start with that, I think a lot of universities have the same challenges at Winthrop, and I can say from my standpoint, I was worried that we would have 30 applicants for this job. We had over 150 applicants across the country. So obviously I was wrong. I'm not smart, that smart. But to that extent, I think it was very obvious that COVID has impacted higher ed. We need enrollment. We need an evaluation of all the, what are we selling at Winthrop? The evaluation of exactly what is the offering, that identity crisis maybe that is at Winthrop. I don't know, but again, Jack would have more experience on the higher ed side, but it seemed to me that everybody that pulled into this search had experience in undertaking challenges and enjoyed those challenges and had an answer to actually winning, which that might not be a good answer, Joel, sorry, but it was a great search. I can't put the detail specifically on it, obviously, for this forum, but it was just ran so well with the details that Dr. Fowler and Dr. Gloria Jones, too, and the PSAG, all of these people, everybody was involved in this, so everybody's voice was heard. So there wasn't anything that was missed, whether it was athletics, whether it was the College of Education, whether it was the College of Business, whether it was the community in partnering with firms like yours or, a Williams and Fudge. It was just amazing overall.
I think one point is higher ed is in a major shift, right? Yeah. We're in a major recalibration. That's across the country. COVID accelerated that. The proverbial cliff was projected 25, 26, 27. And
is that generational? You mean the cliff? Is that just an enrollment?
Yeah. It's enrollment and demographics both, which kind of combine to the same thing. But Northeast experienced it first. In the early 2000s, we could see it coming in the Northeast because of birth rates dropping, and the Northeast has a disproportionate amount of college-bound children. So if that birth rate drops, right, you're hitting top of the funnel stuff. But then after 2008 and 2009, birth rates dropped everywhere from the Great Recession. And in 2018, last time I think that data that's been compiled, it's 1.7. So top of the funnel stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So
just numbers.
There you go.
Fewer college kids.
Right. And so so 2008, 2009. When does that? Right. 2015, 25, 2000. Right. 2000. Right. Then COVID accelerated it. Right. 1 million fewer students in the last 2 years.
Wow.
Across the board. Across the country. So, but Winthrop's had its challenges before that. Winthrop, like many institutions, was built on a model that assumed there would always be plenty of students for the limited number of seats. And that just simply flipped. There are too many seats and not enough students. And the model of higher education becoming a much more competitive business, Winthrop's been trying to catch up with that and the enrollment decline that we've experienced since 2015. And I think that's important. Since 2015,
pre-COVID,
way before COVID, signifies the extent to which we needed to adjust to the new business model of higher education.
Yeah, and that's simple economics. When the supply of something is greater than the demand, the cost of it certainly cannot increase. Otherwise, you're going to lose its place in the market. Right?
That's right. Exactly. That's right. And so the presidential profile that was pulled together is going to hit many of the same notes that other presidential profiles are going to hit. Mm-hmm. Right. We need to increase community engagement. We need to increase exposure to programs that are demand driven. We need to increase fundraising. We need to increase our relationships across the state. These are the types of things. And so really the only difference would be just kind of points of emphasis, points of emphasis. And then really it's incumbent on then the candidates to go past the profile, right? Get on the webpage, look around, start reading some stuff, see what's going on. And this is why there were 150 candidates, because I'm sorry, you're in Rock Hill. What? You're next to Charlotte, the Panther. What? You have how much going into that? Yeah, there was like, and for Dr. Cerna, I'm in southern Maine. I think I'm good to come to Rock Hill. So
pretty easy. And that's kind of that last point I would say, Joel, is the growth in York County and what's happening here was that catalyst to get those applicants in, because
without a doubt.
It would not help, I think, the university if we had somebody that wasn't in a high-growth area or understood that. Mm-hmm. You could get somebody from New York City. No, that's not really going to resonate here. It's not having growth. Now, if it was a Brentwood, Tennessee, outside of Nashville, yeah, that makes sense. If it's Austin, if it's something like that, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of good things there in growth. Or, like Dr. Cerna, you're in a tough spot, but you made it happen without the growth. Yeah. Imagine what he can do with the growth.
Right. And for those who don't know, I mean, he came from southern Maine, right? I mean, can you give a little background?
Yeah, president of Maine Farmington, and that's exactly right. So they're not exploding with enrollment, right? So he had to make some very strategic decisions. It's part of the Maine system, so it's he had challenges there, but he had to make some very real decisions and to align their budgets and get them ready for what they can.
I don't know what university doesn't have challenges, though,
right?
Let's just call it the top tier 1 research. I guess it's R1 technically. Is that
right?
It?
Or land grants. Yeah, that's exactly. So flagships.
Maybe that's the top 25 public universities in the country. That are
everyone else has funding, enrollment.
Everybody has these problems. So who's the one that can engage the community very deeply? Who's the one that can not just go for singles from donations and actually build relationships? Mm-hmm. Who is that person that has a vision for what Winthrop could be in 10 years? Mm-hmm. Not just 2, not just 3. And I think they made a great decision, the Board of Trustees.
And I think they also had because of the experience of the last 10 years, right? Be that whatever it is, I think they were just very intentional about fit. And they didn't, I think they would say that they didn't, when they, either in their selection of anywhere down the line, I think they did not chase the shiny object.
That is 100% accurate.
They did not chase, a provost from a flagship, right? Who's not going to understand. I do not know if a provost of a flagship applied. So let me make sure that's clear. But you know what I mean? Right? Because a master's comprehensive regional university has a different budget model, different job responsibilities. This president is going to have to do some different things than a president of those schools would have to do. So I think there's been a lot of lessons learned just having gone through this so many times.
Well, and I think you just touched on something. I don't know if they ever had an actual president apply for the president's position at Winthrop before, right? I mean, this was a situation where you had multiple sitting collegiate presidents.
They have, but they haven't advanced. Either they pulled out before it got to the final stages, or they weren't selected to
Yeah.
advance. Again, this is a very different dynamic, right? Higher ed, there's going to be a consolidation, right?
Yeah.
We're in the middle of that. And
Is everyone trying to find a better lifeboat right now?
correct.
And so that tells us that Winthrop is
Correct.
actually really well positioned.
That's right.
So all these challenges are endemic to higher education.
Yes.
They're not unique to Winthrop,
Right.
but perhaps our opportunities are somewhat
Yes,
unique.
without a doubt.
Okay.
Think
Without a
about,
doubt.
you asked the question, not to do a complete 360 on this and close this out, but you asked how do donors and the community and staff and faculty know that the Board of Trustees got this right. Think about the risk on all of these sitting presidents applying to Winthrop. That's public knowledge, right? There was over 150 different applicants where, this is kind of front and center out there. You're putting your brand as a president, as a whatever your role is out there. But that's how much you believe in what this is overall at Winthrop and how much opportunity.
So Dr. Cerna comes into campus or comes into the position, when is it, July?
July 1 is the official start date.
Okay, so when he comes into Winthrop and he comes onto campus, what is he going to find? Tell me about the asset that he has in advancement and how the foundation works to increase his chances of success at Winthrop.
Yeah, and I guess I'll just start too with, a lot of people don't know about the foundation at Winthrop. We've been around since, I believe, 1971,
Something like
maybe earlier at that point. But, our mission at the foundation is to provide funds for scholarships, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is, let's fund scholarships for students, fund the opportunity to go to Winthrop and achieve a degree, whether it's a 4-year, whether you're a non-traditional student, whether you're, a master's degree seeking student, et cetera. The foundation is in such a good spot right now overall to support that overall university mission. Dr. Cerna is going to come into something that's really great that we as a foundation board and staff can certainly help with, but he is not going to come into a position where I have to go fix something.
Yeah.
Right? I can focus on academic programs. I can focus on enrollment. I can focus on livelihood in the community and getting my family engaged. I don't have to worry about the foundation because now we're approaching $100 million in assets.
Mm-hmm.
That is a...
Can we put that into context real quick? Because I don't think people may not realize what that actually means.
Well, yeah, right. We just shared that data point. When we cross 100 million, we'll be in the top 25% of endowments.
Wow.
In higher ed.
And think about that. I mean, there's usually this shift in the inflection point where once you get over 100 million in assets, you start looking like, the real deal.
Yeah.
Not going to lie. You can do things. You can innovate.
Right.
You can, fund ideas versus just, unrestricted assets or scholarships. You can support the hiring of different staff members on the university and subsidize things. You can hire more staff, more advancement sales folks. So you think about the trajectory of what can happen when you get 100 million and you get 125 to 150, attention starts to be drawn on you, frankly.
Does that perhaps also alleviate some of the strain on just tuition dollars?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It does eventually. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
without a doubt. Without a doubt. Yeah, absolutely. And you've probably had conversations with Representative Semrel about those challenges, right? And it's a challenge for families to afford college education. So the foundation, anything that the foundation can provide to alleviate some of those pressures is critical. Mm-hmm. Let me just say this. Peter's leadership on the foundation has been extraordinary. Following Bob Brakefield, that did a fabulous job.
Mm-hmm.
Andy Sheen.
Following Andy Sheen. And quite frankly, now we're looking forward to make the foundation even more forward in the community, extending the Winthrop brand with the Winthrop Foundation involved more conspicuously in things in the community. Mm-hmm. And it's because of their leadership that we're able to do that. And I would just like to just say, these are volunteers, right? And they have significantly altered, right? We do not have the $200 million gift coming into Winthrop right now, right?
Not yet.
Not yet. But it's because this guy that Winthrop's going to be in a place where that development's going to be coming.
And
I just
God,
want to
with all
make
these
sure
challenges,
that,
like, thank God.
That's right. That's right.
Timing could not be better.
That's right. And, for a university in need of a win, it's a huge win. And kind of like we went back to the higher education business model changing, higher ed, a lot of schools aren't used to self-promotion, right? They're not, it's not kind of in their...
They haven't had to.
No, right. It's like, well, wait a minute, isn't it kind of implicit? The college degree from Winthrop, I mean, what the heck, right? You would say that. I mean, what the heck?
Yeah.
Right? So, but we need to do that. We got to get much better at that, right? And then this is one of those things that we can talk about, just the decision-making that's happened to set up the foundation for future success, which then leads the university to future success.
There's been so much operational friction, I think, in the foundation going 10 years back. And I think why we're so successful, and Jack alludes to it, the Bob Brakefields, the Andy Sheens, the Matt Doshes, I'm missing a ton of people, the Gary Williams. Yeah. Right? Gary was on the board for many years. They had a vision as well that, okay, we have to kind of clean our house internally before you can go play in the yard, right? Before you're outside throwing the football around, you got to make sure your bed's made. You got to make sure you ate your lunch, you had your vegetables, right? We've done that now. So now we can go out to the market and say, yeah, you can feel proud as a donor that when you're giving us $1 or $10,000 or more, we are good stewards of your money, first and foremost. That's going to a amazing cause. Oh, and we're being innovative too of what we're doing. And that's where we're on that third stool, that innovation. What can we be doing that's different to compete for dollars versus Clemson, USC, College of Charleston, Citadel, Coastal, all those schools? We are in a great position to land grab from an asset base right now.
You just touched on something. It's a bit of a tangent, but since you just touched on it, I want to get into it. In a state where you have Clemson in the national news every Saturday with an amazing football team, you have South Carolina, you have Coastal, which is, good tailgate experience, football team, beaches right there. You have College of Charleston. I'm leaving out 100 colleges. How does Winthrop compete for students in an environment like that? And what is the competitive edge that allows Winthrop, and I guess what makes a Winthrop student want to come be a part of the Winthrop community?
Well, I mean, you've got two things. One, you have to make visible the programs, right, that the region of the community want. Our academic portfolio should mirror, right, the top 5 industries in York County, the top 5 industries in South Carolina, that kind of thing. And then investing in the marketing that, kind of makes visible the Winthrop brand. And what I mean by that is the value propositions, right? And for so long, those were known, conspicuous. But again, the model has changed, right? And so simply word of mouth is not appropriate enough to continue to maintain your market share, which we've discovered over the last 5, 6, 7 years. That's not enough. So I just don't think that if you build and leverage and sell and market a portfolio that supports this region in the industries that we need to provide, the growth is there. I mean, this is an attractive area. I mean, that's just the bottom line. And every school, here's the thing, every school sells what they've got, right? And so we could say, well, Coastal Carolina has the beach and they've got football. Okay, fine. We have York County and we have Charlotte, and you sell what you have and you line up your portfolio that way. There's no doubt that we can't take. But here's the other thing: higher ed institutions are not used of looking at it in a competitive landscape in the sense of, if I gain 3 students, that means you lost 2 students.
Right.
Well, guess what? That's going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, let's go. It is what it is.
When I think about Winthrop and that value prop differentiator going to the market, I don't want to say we have an identity crisis, but we need to know what we're selling as a university. And early in my career, I learned you can either sell a new product where you can sell an old product a new way.
Mm-hmm.
Doing both is extremely difficult. We don't know yet if we're going to sell a new product or if we're going to sell the old product a different way, right? And it could be both.
Mm-hmm.
Could be one, it could be the other. And I think that's on Dr. Cerna to figure out, okay, what is the trajectory? Am I selling a new program that, as Jack mentioned, is prevalent in York County where there is demand gen, and I can loop back into that and just have a feeder program? Or is it, look, we need to double down on education. That is our bread and butter. We are not going to let another university take that market cap away from us and just sell it a different way. He'll have to figure that out.
Yeah.
But we're all there for them. But I think it's a great thing to figure out right now.
That's a good
Well,
problem.
I would also say part of it is recognizing your role in the state of South Carolina as well. I think that we relied a lot upon our previous earlier reputation, right, provider of college of education and strong liberal arts foundation, right? But we're a public master's comprehensive university. We are a public master's comprehensive university. We need to be delivering programs that the public needs. And there is a major need in this area of South Carolina in all areas of healthcare, all areas, right? I wouldn't say that's just the way for Winthrop to grow enrollment. I would say it's our charge.
Right.
We are a public university. We need to be serving those needs in this region.
Yeah. That's a really interesting way to put it, too, because if it is a publicly funded university, then that changes where the obligations and duties are. And if the obligation is to the public, then, yeah, you really have to make sure. And, of course, there's got to be ROI for the university and all that
right.
Of course.
to make it actually work. But if that's where the demand is, of course there will be.
Right.
And I think that actually bodes well because, okay, so if the competitive edge, if the value proposition for Winthrop is come to an area, come to a market where there's employment opportunity for you if you're well-trained and you're going to receive the type of education that Winthrop can provide, versus the value proposition of another school, which is, hey, come watch football games.
Right.
Does that lend itself to solving another problem, which is the quality of student? Because if you're the type of high school student who's looking at colleges and you say, well, and your choices are, I want to go tailgate for football games on Saturday mornings, or I want to go somewhere where I'm going to be challenged, but I'm going to have job opportunities when I graduate because I'm going to be somewhere where the market is robust and there's a demand for me as a trained professional coming out of this university. Don't you think that the type of student that chooses the latter option is probably the type of student that you want to have?
Yeah, to a certain, yes, absolutely. And what I would use this data point, right? And this data hasn't changed for
I'm assuming that type of student
years.
exists.
Yeah, that's right. For this data hasn't changed for 12 years. We survey our applicants. We survey folks who are admitted, right? And over 50% of the students, Winthrop was not their first choice. Okay?
I'm one.
Now,
I have to admit
I'm
to
two.
that. Yeah.
there you go.
There you go.
We were not their first choice, which means if for many in South Carolina, if Clemson accepted them, they went to Clemson. But it also suggests, look at the number of those students that did not go, did not transfer, they stayed. So if we have over 50% of the incoming students where we're not their first choice, that can create some challenges. All you have to do is lower that number to 40%, and you've changed the trajectory of the university. You know,
Is that a retention problem?
No, I just mean
Yeah.
because back to your point.
Yeah. If they're choosing you.
Are they going to choose you or football? We're not in that debate right now because we've not made visible that.
Yeah.
And all we need to do is peel off 10%. We don't need all 50%.
That's interesting.
We don't need to convince the person that just really wants football. No, you really want stop.
Yeah.
But what about the 10% that think, well, I guess I'll go to South Carolina. I mean, that could be fun. Versus I'm very into exercise science, and they've got internships lined up with athletic training and the Panthers organization. Now I have a different proposition to consider.
Yeah. Now there's a career path.
Right.
It's not even, I just think about students coming to Winthrop, and when I came, well, Charlotte's up the road. There is a Fort Mill, York County experience now that is so different than when we were here 20 years ago. It's kind of crazy. Where do I want to go to lunch today? Oh, there's 50 different places. on Main Street, right?
Yeah, it was a lot different. Very much so. Almost comically so. It was still Old Rock Hill, still very much the small town. And it still retains all of that charm, but also it's vibrant and there's economic opportunity, and it's not really Charlotte is up the road. It's almost like you're kind of part of greater Charlotte at this point.
Correct.
It's hard to tell where the divide actually is. So yeah, it's a lot different. And you're right. I mean, I think if just a small percentage change really has an effect long term on the type of person, and how does that? So obviously, the university is well known as a school to go for education.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it has the education programs, the liberal arts programs. However, if you're attracting those kind of students, does that also kind of solve the problem that you have at the foundation or in advancement, where you have students that will perhaps be financially successful later in life and have the ability to give back, or the desire to give back to the university in a significant way?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think so.
Absolutely.
Right. But I would also say this. Every kid that watches X medical drama comes in as a biology major.
Yeah.
And within one semester, they're not biology majors anymore,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not at Winthrop. I mean, that curriculum is tough,
Yeah.
right? That's why if you make it through,
It's
you're good
not
to
easy,
go.
but also huge opportunity because you can do research at Winthrop.
But that's exactly right.
Massive
So, but
opportunity.
Yeah.
but again, it's the top of the funnel stuff,
Mhm.
right? Kids want to go to school where there's some juice,
Mm-hmm.
where there's stuff happening, where things are happening. Clemson has tons of English majors. Okay? The humanities are fine.
And you can say that as an English.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's your
The
background.
humanities can be served by getting more cybersecurity majors, because they're going to realize, I actually loved that philosophy course.
Mhm.
That history course was unbelievable. Happens all the time, right?
Mhm.
And so they want to just go where they know that the ecosystem is setting them up
Yeah.
for moving forward. Absolutely right.
Let's dig into that a little bit more. How do you change? What has been the model for alumni engagement, especially in advancement or at the foundation, and how has that changed? How have either of those enterprises leveraged new technology to engage with alumni? I think you threw up on the screen a minute ago. There's 50 or 60,000 Winthrop
gotta be over
alumni
60,000.
spread out all over the world. Each of them has a unique Winthrop experience, and it almost to a person. If you talk to anyone that went to Winthrop, I mean, they love it. They rave about it. They preach it all the time. Everywhere they go, they want to talk about it. How have you leveraged technology? Has the model changed with engagement, and how do you see that continuing to change or evolve going forward?
Well, number one, Winthrop is not unique as a public university to have not successfully built a culture of philanthropy that extends to all corners of the university, right? Public schools, they're late to the game.
Yeah.
And then public land grant R1s, they can go, oh, we'll do advancement now. Bam, done, right? So for schools of our kind, it's going to take some time. You got to build it right and all that good stuff. And like any other things, we've had some fits and starts with that. So of those 60,000 alums, though, we don't have connectivity points, half of them, right? So immediately, all right, well, how do we do that? Well, to build a culture of philanthropy, you have to start when students are freshmen, right? You got to start thinking about, hey, how are you here? Because you just got that scholarship, so you need to remember that, right? Let's build programs where you can give $10, right? And then suddenly 10 other freshmen gave $10, and look what you guys just did, that kind of thing. So, slowly building a culture that way. But you're absolutely right. The technology has changed. It definitely enables us more opportunities to reach out to alumni and engage alumni, and it's key. And we have to constantly be thinking about that in new ways. And then I will also say, as Peter and I have chatted about, we have to engage with all our alumni differently than alumni from the 1960s and 70s.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Winthrop has changed.
I would hope so.
Winthrop has changed, right? Our co-ed university, And now our enrollment mirrors the population of South Carolina, and we should be very proud of that, right? Well, how do we engage with that how do we engage with the diversity of alumni that we have in ways that are different than we have before, And so we've got work to do. Yeah, but it's exciting. It's fun. It's great to think about that stuff.
I was going to say, I think that's on us as well, respectfully. I get very emotional on this, so sorry, Joel and Jack, if I start getting fired up about alumni and the lack of giving that we've had at Winthrop, because it doesn't take a lot to do a lot for us at Winthrop. $10 a year, $20 a month, that's a lunch. You're an alum. Make an effort. Give back. We have underserved probably our alumni group, and Lori Tuttle's amazing in the alumni group, and I was just texting with her yesterday. We've got great ideas to market to affinity groups, right? To the Greek, societies, to the athletes, to everybody. We have to do things differently if we're selling differently now in a different market. But again, I don't know what the number is directly. Jack, you would know probably. It's how many consistent alumni give. It's 350, 400 annually?
Oh, no, it's higher than that.
Okay.
It's higher than that. Yeah, we had, I would say 3,000, because we had 3,600 donors this past year. And the majority were alumni.
Going back to Jack's point, though, we're not trying to boil the ocean overnight. We don't need to get that to 10,000.
That's right.
Let's get it to 4,000 or 5,000. What does that do? That puts our number in the foundation now from 100 million to 150 extremely quickly.
Yeah.
And then you plug that back into the system, this ecosystem at Winthrop, and create more of that. Create that vision and that innovation and do things that are unique that the Stanfords are doing that we can easily do, just at a different level.
Yeah, just a slightly smaller scale.
Yep.
But the opportunities here, like you said, because the market's growing, Rock Hill's still right-sized because you can make significant changes without millions of dollars or billions of dollars. But that kind of touches on another thing I wanted to ask y'all about, because Winthrop is in the center of Rock Hill, and yet it's not necessarily prominent in Rock Hill. What should be the role of the university in the greater community, and how do you see that changing over the next 5 years? Good versus bad, push versus pull. Where's the demand for university engagement coming from? Where's the push coming from? I want to touch on all that.
Big question. Wow.
Big question.
A lot of knowledge coming on a Friday from Schiller Hamilton. You have to win in your backyard, no matter what. And I think you've made that reference before, Joel, which I steal all the time. We're not going to win every student or every potential student in our community that wants to leave and get away from mom and dad. I didn't want to stay home. I needed to get away from an Italian dad, right? So let's just call that what it is. And that's why I got him next to me. But you have to win and be able to feed your community with some type of talent, hence the 5 programs that feed the public area, whether it's healthcare, whether it's fintech. I don't know what that could be. But you have to have that. Jack, jump in here because you know more about this than I do.
Well, I would just say it's going to just change precipitously. Exponentially. Dr. Cerna's great with the community, great acumen, a business background.
Winthrop alum, we should mention.
Yes, Winthrop alum, which is a great story.
Yeah.
We're ready to get him in front of as many folks. And what I would say is I am a Panthers fan. And when we hired our new GM, who I think is actually really strong, his first press conference, he said, we're going to be involved in every trade in the NFL. Doesn't mean we're going to be in the trade, but we're going to be involved in every trade discussion. There should be no development that happens in York County that Winthrop is not at that table.
I agree.
Not a single development. And maybe we're not involved, but maybe we get our partners and neighbors, hey, York Tech needs to be at this table. You need to be talking to Clinton right now, right? And too often, I think where we've failed to recognize the opportunity of just being a good neighbor and a good partner means doing things even beyond what's necessarily directly serving Winthrop, right? But joining that entire community. I think Dr. Cernal will get there. I think advancement will play a role. The foundation will play a role, and our amazing academic programs and deans. I mean, they've got great abilities to get in the community and find out what's there and help. So I think that's going to happen. And I think it's going to be really exciting. I think
the reality is it's a very low-cost investment that Winthrop can make, because you're just talking about people's times. Yep. You know, having a seat at the table, going to attend the lunches and the breakfasts, and, you know, seeing one another at Knowledge Perk nearly every morning, and, you know, have just jumping into conversations at this table or this table. But those small changes, those marginal differences have exponential effects, both in the greater community and at Winthrop. And so it's almost amazing that like Winthrop is where it is, considering like the mountain of opportunity that's even ahead of it, right? Like, what has sustained Winthrop through some of these challenges?
Schiller and Hamilton Podcast.
It just went without saying, but he said it.
There it is.
Just go there.
That's all it took.
You know, I think there's been a core community of people that have supported the university consistently through thick and thin, and they, you know, as far as I know, will still support the university. We need to expand that more, though. Can't go to the well all the time. It's going to dry up eventually. And then I'd also say probably the faculty being here at
unbelievable.
I take it for granted. I'll say that right now in front of any faculty member here. We have some of the best in the world. Yeah, with what they've created and what they have, and in the research.
And they're here because they want to teach, which is huge difference. You mentioned the R1s. Well, you're going to get a professor who actually wants to teach you at Winthrop, and I think that's one of the big differences, right?
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of students take advantage of it. I didn't, because certainly I wasn't as smart as you and others at the time. But I think the staff, the faculty, that whole cohort staying intact, pretty strong.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any question.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any question.
And they've been through a lot. Leadership changes, you know, is what it is. But we have long tenured faculty at Winthrop, incredibly well-known and versed in their field, that are dedicated to educating the students and actually teaching, right? I mean, how unique is that in the ecosystem?
Yeah, and I think I would also just like to say, as a tenured full professor myself, Joseph Miller likes to talk about it this way. The student experience, right, is just at the core of the enterprise. Right? The student experience, the academic and the extracurricular, the student experience, right? And I would say through various decisions and non-decisions, we've not protected that enough. And so therefore more is being asked of faculty than ever before, and it's really burning them out. And if we want to keep those same faculty that are that dedicated and that inspiring, then we got to get some things off their back. Now, you know, hey, everybody has business experience and understands when profits are down, we got to do more with less and all that kind of stuff, right? Sure. But it's been going for a long time. Enrollment's been down, but also higher ed has changed with other things around it. So assessment and these other things that are required from like the Department of Ed and DC. I mean, it just is what it is. Accreditors are coming down, and now you need to provide more. And then enrollment drops. So now you don't have the staff support to help do more. Well, hey, by the way, while you're running that class, can you do these 3 things while you teach the class? So I look forward to the juice so that the core is protected more.
Well said. And that's where the foundation comes in too, that we have to think beyond for the future, that it is not just about, you know, okay, we got some money in, this is great, we can put it back to scholarships. That's wonderful. That is the purpose. I said that earlier. But how are we protecting, how are we supporting growth, both from faculty, students, staff, community? It all ties together. Yeah. And that's where we need to be doing things with the foundation that are partnering with other foundations, even in the state. Can we do some joint events? Can we, you know, do something that some other foundation can't do because of our size, or vice versa? Like it's very easy. The Foundation for the Carolinas is right up the street. We should be having partnership conversations with them. It's all right in front of us, which is a lot of fun now, but we couldn't do this until, like I said, we cleaned up our house a bit.
Yeah. So do you think that allows Winthrop to compete for talent? I mean, if you're talking about, the type of students you want, obviously to create that Winthrop experience, and obviously there's a core at Winthrop that exists, but, recruitment and retention going forward, is that how Winthrop competes? The foundation has a role, the greater marketplace has a role. How do you maintain that?
It's all about revenue, right? Yeah. We can't provide redress to salary compression. And those faculty that were your favorite faculty, right? If you
academics speak for how do we pay these people what they're worth?
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. Correct. That's exactly right. And that's only going to come from increased revenue.
Yeah, which has to come from somewhere.
But then there has to be the intentional, strategic protocol and plan that says, okay, so now our revenue went up 0.7%. 30% of that goes to marketing, 30% of that goes to faculty and staff, 30% of that goes to deferred maintenance, right?
Is that a hard sell?
No, I don't think it's a hard sell, and I think Dr. Stern will be great. I think he'll be great. I think he's got a great mind. I think he really conveyed a sense of how to build that. Yeah. But we have to do it.
So in other words, the faculty buys into that approach. Like, hey, this is a rising tide. We're going to invest in.
It'll take a few. I mean, this is going to take a few years, but that has to happen. I mean, what business doesn't recognize that it's driven by their people, right? I mean, but higher education sometimes forgets that, and then when they forget it, then they get hit with a challenge like we've experienced the last 5 years. Having forgotten that is a real problem. So,
and that's where even Jack and Robin Embry, who's our executive director at the foundation, I think it was last week, we were even thinking about ways to think ahead for 10 years. How do we do all of this in 10 years and have that strategic plan, which is not, on a 6-month cycle or an 8-month cycle. We have to think bigger and longer term to have that retention of staff, right? I mean, where are we going to grow wallet share from new students? Where are we going to grow wallet share from new faculty that can come here? Where can we grow from existing? Where can we retain? Where can, these stories are across the board, and we're thinking about that.
So you mentioned the next 10 years, and I know there's a basketball game, Big South, first game tonight, go Eagles. So I don't want to keep everybody too long. So I want to kind of end with this. So you mentioned the pitch. You mentioned, how do we get students here? So if you're speaking to those high school kids now who are saying, or who are contemplating where they actually want to go for school, what do you tell them? What's the pitch? What does your Winthrop degree mean 10 years from now? What does that Winthrop degree symbolize?
Who's going to talk first? That's the question. That's a big question, right? Because I don't know if we even know that yet. Like,
I know we have new leadership coming in. We can't get ahead of our skis here, but
here's
what are we speculating?
The only answer that is appropriate, only answer that is appropriate is to say that your degree will be worth more in 10 years than it is now. That's it. Bottom line. And we've not taken care of that the last 10 years in the sense. No, we haven't taken care of making alumni feel that. It is that.
It is that. The reality is there.
The reality is that. But right, perception versus feel versus right. And so, but I don't think there's any question that we can tell that high school student that their degree, and tell their parents that your child's degree is going to be worth more in 10 years than it is today.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any question.
We need to attach that quantitative alpha, right, to that degree and say that this is what it will mean in 10 years. If you follow this track, if you are certainly a good student and you put the work in, we're there to support you too, to get there. I think we're good examples of that.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a
doubt. Try to be. That's right. Nice. Well, guys, we could talk all day about this stuff as we do from time to time.
I thought you were going to go athletics here. I was about to take the jacket off, talk,
well,
conference realignments and, where we could go there. That'd be cool. No.
We'll save that for round 2.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank y'all for coming in today. Enjoyed it. Hope y'all did.
Joe, we appreciate it a lot, man. Thank you for the support always.
Thanks for the support. Thanks for the chance.